This is Roger Stone for American Sovereign Bullion. Since 2020, the U.S. dollar has lost over 20% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to rise. Call 844-272-2428 or go to asbgold.com now to get your free gold and silver guide and learn how to protect your wealth with physical gold and silver delivered to your door or held in a gold IRA today. So go to asbgold.com now. Don't wait for the markets to drop. That's asbgold.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for our technical difficulties. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. This is the Stone Zone, and we are starting with breaking news. I'm sorry to keep you on your edge of your seats there. But, of course, the big story that I talked about last night, still a big story tonight. They are counting the votes, and they don't have a decision yet. They are counting the votes in Virginia on that big referendum to decide whether they are going to allow this massive radical Democrat redistricting of the state. Remember, Virginia, especially in its congressional districts, is a very purple state. Currently, there are 6 Democrat districts, 6 Democrat members of the House from Virginia, and 5 Republican. This redistricting would turn it into most likely a 10-1 in the favor of Democrats' congressional delegation, if you can believe that they would try such a radical thing. When Governor Abigail Spanberger promised that this would not be a priority for her, of course it was. So far, right now, on this yes or no vote, now the Democrats want people to vote yes for this redistricting. The Republicans want people to vote no. Right now, at 8:11 p.m. here on this Tuesday night, the polls closed at 7 p.m., they have 64% of the vote counted, and right now the no votes are ahead by an even 4 percentage points, 52% to 48%. They have roughly 82,000 more votes at 1,500,000 to about 970,000 votes for yes. So no is still ahead, but it's getting closer and closer, and we'll have to see how this goes. Remember, there could be a big ballot dump from someplace up in Northern Virginia and could change this. So we'll see what happens. But I wanted to get you updated on that breaking news because this is a huge story in America. This would very much make it difficult for the Republicans to hold on to the House, not only now, but for many, many years to come. Now, there are a lot of people who are holding out hope that if this vote doesn't go the right way for the Republicans, they could defeat it in court because there were a lot of legal questions about this referendum and how it was rushed before the voters, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, that'll take time, and you don't know. I mean, it would obviously be better if this thing just gets defeated. But the margin is getting smaller by the moment right now. I don't know if this is going to hold up, but right now the no vote's still leading. But right now, they only have a 3.8 percentage point lead. It's gotten narrower just since I've spoken to you. 65% of the votes counted, and about 78,000 more votes for the no side. We'll see if that continues. I'm watching it for you live right now. I didn't want to get into any of the other issues of the day until we talked about this, because this is a big issue. So I'm watching this closely. I will keep you updated by the minute and make sure that you're updated. Now, the other big story of the last several hours is that President Trump has decided to extend the ceasefire in the war with Iran. And I have to tell you, and this is something that I said on many of the stations that you're listening to this program on now, something that I said on Sunday, I said it again on Monday, and I'll say it again now. For the most part, the status quo with Iran, I'm kind of okay with. The only thing that gives me a huge amount of pause on this situation now, just kind of holding where we are now with the blockade, etc., are these executions that Iran has been carrying out the last couple days of people who simply just protested against the regime. Now, I don't know what these people are thinking in Iran right now by carrying out these executions. I was just talking with Rita Cosby, who you hear on many of these stations as well. You know, at the Nuremberg trials, one of the things that was so shocking about the Nazi war criminals is that so many of them committed a lot of their crimes after D-Day. What were they thinking? Certainly after D-Day, and certainly after the Allies really were able to make major incursions into France and then moving on into Germany. Anybody with half a brain knew that the war was effectively over, or at least that Germany wasn't going to win. Why would you commit blatant war crimes and that in that period of time? And this is the same thing with Iran. It's and to make it even worse for these people, it's so much more obvious now who's doing it. This is not under as much of a fog of war as we saw with those massive executions a couple of months ago. These are really very easy to pinpoint. Each and every one of the victims is being memorialized on social media. We know who's committing these crimes. What are they doing? I mean, the simple answer is these people are just so evil that they don't know how to restrain themselves. So this, of course, is not an easy thing for me to say, well, this is the one thing I don't like about the status quo. So I'm certainly not brushing it off. I'm infuriated by it in a huge way. But other than that, make no mistake, as long as this blockade is going on, as long as there's clearly chaos and confusion among what's left of the leadership of Iran, Iran is only getting weaker. And their bargaining power in the coming months and days will only get weaker every day. And so it makes sense for President Trump, a lifelong negotiator, a lifelong deal maker, to look at the people across the table from him at their deteriorating situation and just let the things play out. And to his credit, President Trump called out the Iranian regime today, denouncing these executions, urging them not to carry them out. And we'll see if that gets us anywhere. All right, 8:16 here on the East Coast. This is the Stone Zone. I'm Jake Novak in for Roger Stone. Going to give you one more check before we go to the break. And it continues to narrow, this referendum in Virginia. They now have 66% of the votes counted. And the margin in favor of the no voters, that's the pro-Republican, anti-redistricting vote, has now been whittled down to just 59,000. They have 51.4% of the vote is no. 48.6% of the vote is yes. It has been narrowing by the minute. It is unclear whether those no votes and that lead will hold for them. We shall see. We're going to come right back and talk more about the Iran situation and other major breaking news items in the news, because there is something very big that happened, and I'll be right back with that. It has to do with another thing in Virginia. Remember that Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville? Those very fine people. We had a very major big breakthrough in that story today, and I want to make sure you know about it. We'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?
Ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball. Join us Friday, April 24th through Sunday, April 26th for our first homestand of the season and our 5th anniversary celebration. Score big with $5 tickets. Grab $5 domestic draft beers. Enjoy $5 popcorn. And yes, 2 Nathan's hot dogs for just $5. Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
So Alan Dershowitz is finally leaving the Democratic Party for real and registering as a Republican. He didn't mince words when he explained why he was doing so. In an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, he says the Democratic Party has just become too anti-Israel and too anti-Semitic, but he made the point that he still supports a lot of Democratic Party ideals. Sorry, Alan, you're missing a little bit of the forest for the trees here. Ever since the Democratic Party made it clear that it was throwing out the idea of meritocracy, that it would consider anyone who was a success an enemy, it was a highway to anti-Semitism that very day. When was that? 50, 60 years ago? The fact is, if you're in favor of affirmative action, DEI, or wanting to tax the rich all the time, even more at a higher rate than everybody else, that means you're giving up on the idea that the Jews brought to the world, which is we're going to judge you by your good deeds, your bad deeds, and your ability, and nothing else. Thanks for listening.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
Roger Stone, who's a very, one of the smartest political minds. Roger Stone was persecuted. People forget he's actually a brilliant political analyst.
Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone. Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone this evening. Got our technical difficulties fixed up, and I appreciate your patience there. Want to first give you the latest from Virginia because they're still counting the votes. 69% of the votes counted, and it's still getting closer by the minute. Right now, the votes against the redistricting, these would be the votes that would be more favorable for Republicans. The votes against the redistricting are leading the yes votes by 40,000 votes. That's it, with 69% of the votes counted. So this is still very much up in the air, very much too close to call. But the votes are getting counted. We're moving up in that percentage number. We'll see if we have to do some kind of shenanigans with absentee ballots, but I hope not. I don't know if that's a major factor in this particular referendum. But there you have it. It is basically about a 2 percentage point lead, but 40,000 votes. That's all that separates the no's and the yeses. For people who want to stop this redistricting, they're voting no. The people in favor are voting yes. Democrats are yes, basically. Republicans are no, just so you have the little shorthand there. Big story breaking today. The indictment of the Southern Poverty Law Center, which for many, many years has been acting as a far-left radical organization, doxing and endangering anyone who isn't far leftist. I can tell you, for me, the SPLC, I lost all respect for them about 15 years ago when they decided that Ayaan Hirsi, a woman born as a Muslim who was abused for many years in the Muslim community, converted away from Islam and became a critic of her community. They decided to label her as a hate monger because they know better. I mean, to me, that was the end for them. But the incredible accusations and indictment against the SPLC announced by the Justice Department today include this major shocker. For those of you, maybe you're not shocked, but this is still a big story. This indictment says that the SPLC funded and helped coordinate the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Remember that? You heard me right. No, not the leftist rally, but the supposedly white supremacist rally. I'm going to play for you what acting Attorney General Todd Blanche had to say. Listen to this.
Good afternoon. Today, a few minutes ago, in the Middle District of Alabama, a grand jury returned an 11-count indictment charging the Southern Poverty Law Center with 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. According to the charges in the indictment, the SPLC is a nonprofit entity that purports to fight white supremacy and racial hatred by reporting on extremist groups and conducting research to inform law enforcement groups with the goal of dismantling these groups. As the indictment describes, the SPLC was not dismantling these groups. It was instead manufacturing the extremism it purports to oppose by paying sources to stoke racial hatred.
That, my friends, is a horrific accusation. And I have to tell you, as someone who watched very closely that so-called Unite the Right rally all those years ago, 2017, I'm not in the least bit shocked because the whole thing was so fishy. Remember when we found out that the lead coordinator of the Unite the Right rally had voted for Barack Obama? How did that make any sense? The whole thing was just so fishy from the beginning. Now, apparently, this grand jury has seen enough evidence to hand down an indictment on this, several indictments. And another reason why I'm not shocked about this, because remember, we saw so many hoax allegations, real hoax allegations, against President Trump and Trump supporters during the year of the election in 2016 and then after he was elected. It turned out so many of them, it was the Jussie Smollett movement in America. Phony accusations, one after the other. And I'm just not shocked. But it doesn't tamp down my outrage any bit, not one bit. All right, when we come back, we're going to hear from the real host of this program. Roger Stone's going to be calling in, tell us what's going on in D.C. But before we go, 72% of the votes counted in Virginia. Right now, it's just a 27,000 vote lead for the no votes on that redistricting. I'll get you updated when we come back.
Security program on spreadsheets, new regulations piling up, and audit dread? It's time for Vanta. Vanta automates security and compliance, brings evidence into one place, and cuts audit prep by 82%. Less manual work, clearer visibility, faster deals, zero chaos. Call it compliance or call it compliance. Get it? Join the 15,000 companies using Vanta to prove trust. Go to vanta.com/calm.
This is the Stone Zone. Now, get in the zone. It's the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?
Here's Roger Stone.
And I'm Jake Novak filling in for Roger Stone, but we have Roger Stone on the phone right now. And Roger, if you just indulge me for 1 minute, I just want to give everyone updated on that referendum in Virginia. 75% of the votes counted, and right now the no votes lead by fewer than 31,000 votes. It is going to come down to the wire there. I will keep you updated as we go on. But I understand, Roger, that you have been in Washington, D.C. in the last few days, and what is going on? I mean, there's so much going on right now, but I'm going to let you tell us what you think is the top scuttlebutt going on right now in our nation's capital.
Well, Jake, first of all, I want to congratulate you for being in the Stone Zone and for manning the fort while the president called me to Washington, D.C. Of course, as soon as you get here, you're kind of sucked up by the vortex. And therefore, I saw the president today for several hours to talk politics and some very, I think, monumental developments came from that. I also saw Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Of course, the entire time, the president is getting reports about the peace negotiations that are ongoing as he tries to wrap up this war. But I must tell you, the president looked amazingly fit. He looked very rested. He was ebullient. And, of course, he's always warm with me. We've been friends for 50 years. He told Marco Rubio about how I first told him to run for president as early as 1988. I saw the Trump magic before many, and he wasn't ready by his own admission. It was not the right time for him, but we did take a historic trip to New Hampshire, and he kind of wanted to test drive the model, as it were. I remember very distinctly because the Portsmouth, New Hampshire Chamber of Commerce had Vice President George H.W. Bush the previous month. He had about 500 people. It was the largest dinner or lunch, I should say, that they'd ever had. There were over 1,500 people showed up to see Trump land in his black helicopter. And it was vintage Trump. I mean, I go back and I look at his speech in New Hampshire, and he talks about many of the same things he talks about today. Our NATO allies ripping us off, not paying their fair share for the defense. The lousy trade deals where, as the president said at the time, we send social workers and they send their best and brightest, and the need to rebuild our national defense. It's amazing how consistent Donald Trump has been. And he released an extraordinary endorsement today after our meeting. The president made what the New York Post called a blockbuster endorsement in the Republican primary race to succeed the North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. Elise Stefanik, a great American, in my opinion, a great Republican, somebody who was early for Donald Trump. But the president threw his weight behind Anthony Constantino, who is an eccentric upstate entrepreneur, according to the New York Post, in his race against liberal Republican State Assemblyman Robert Smullen in this June primary. The president said, quote, "It is my great honor to endorse America First patriot Anthony Constantino, who's running to represent the fantastic people of New York's 21st district." That's what the president said on the Truth Social. He said Anthony is strongly supported by many of our highly respected MAGA warriors in our movement, such as Mayor Rudy Giuliani and Roger Stone. Proud to say it. I am a strong supporter of Anthony's. Anthony has been such a great supporter, and people don't know this. He put a large controversial sign on the roof of his printing company in Amsterdam, New York, and the local Democrat mayor threatened to put him in jail. Now, you would think that that's a First Amendment free speech issue, but of course the local Democrats went completely and totally insane. And that sign is still there, Jake, and Anthony Constantino is paying $1,000 a day fine because he refuses to take the sign down. That's $365,000 a year. This is an epic endorsement. It has upset the Republican establishment. My good friend Ed Cox has thrown his support to Robert Smullen, although Smullen was never really a Trump supporter, and the Conservative Party has endorsed him, but Smullen is not really a conservative. He's voted, for example, to recognize the Muslim holidays as official holidays in New York State. He voted for some of this transgender nonsense. It's very clear the president stands with those who stand with him. This is an epic endorsement, and of course it reverberated across the news today.
You know, Roger, we've got you here. You have all of your experience as a strategist and as someone who understands the landscape. What's your take on the midterms right now? And are people making a mistake in saying that this Iran war is going to be the big key to the midterms? I'm not on board with that.
Jake, I agree with you. Look, the only thing predictable about Donald Trump is he's completely and totally unpredictable. And therefore, the panicans, those who are hit the panic button and assume that we are going to lose, don't understand, first of all, how volatile this electorate is, how the underpinnings from the big, beautiful bill are the largest tax cut in American history, doing away with the tax on retirement, doing away with the tax on tips, doing away with the tax on Social Security payments for 88% of the people. So the underpinnings that have, I think, very ably put in place by Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, who I think is one of the president's very best appointees. And then there's the question of oil prices. Now, John Catsimatidis, who is an oil man's oil man, did a great interview. I played it in the Stone Zone. It was so good, where he basically pointed out that oil prices will come back down relatively quickly once this war is out of the way. So I think Democrats are counting their chickens, as we used to say, far too early. And for those who say, oh, the House is lost, no, nothing is lost. This entire thing is in play. These results in Virginia are very encouraging. Virginia used to be a reliably red state. Then it has moved blue as the northern Virginia suburbs have become more and more liberal, and as the Richmond suburbs have become more and more liberal. It is now a Democrat state. The fact that Republicans are competitive today in this constitutional amendment regarding redistricting, congressional redistricting, where the Democrats want to take 10 congressional seats and leave the Republicans with 2, is very, very encouraging. Now, it's not clear whether the Republicans will win tonight, but the fact that this is even close is very, very encouraging.
Roger, I talk a lot about how in the old days, the Tip O'Neill maxim, all politics is local, was always true, but it was especially true, of course, in midterm elections. We don't really have – actually, there's no such thing as a national election in America. At the best, it's state by state. Even our presidential elections are state by state. That said, it does seem like the Democrat Party has moved away from that. I have never seen a more central office national party in this country than we see now. It seems like the DNC controls everyone from dog catcher up to governor in their party. And I wonder how that can't play that great in some of these midterm elections where you have to prove that you're for your district first and the party second. I mean, how is this even working for them?
No, it really isn't, because the term moderate Democrat is an oxymoron. Their party has been taken over by a radical clique of Marxist fanatics who want to push transgenderism as a key part of their agenda. The truth is they don't have any agenda at all other than their hatred for Donald Trump, and some would say their hatred for the country. At the same time, Trump has secured the southern border like never before, achieving negative net migration for the first time in 50 years, slashed the illegal border apprehensions by over 95%, and he's removed 2.6 million illegal immigrants through very aggressive deportation and self-deportation policies. This is a win for the country. Joe Biden's border policy was open borders, and I think as many as 26 to 28 million illegals could be in the country. We have no idea how many of them are terrorists, how many of them are dangerous criminals. the entire peace through strength policies. These are the policies of Dwight Eisenhower and Ronald Reagan, not the policies of the Bushes and the neocon Republicans. The United States and Israel launched the decisive Operation Epic Fury, but no boots on the ground, not tens of thousands of American casualties. We took advantage of our ballistic missile capabilities, and we attacked the terrorist proxies. But it was a very focused, very limited, but extraordinarily lethal and successful operation to date, following, of course, the Midnight Hammer, the first attack. So the president, I think, has demonstrated that he will defend the country, and these policies, I think, are counting among the voters.
You know, it makes so little sense to me, Roger. As much as it would be reprehensible for people in a political party and the opposition party to try to make hay out of a losing war situation when there is so much justification for this war, that would be bad enough. But they're trying to to take advantage of a war that we're winning. I mean, the score is 126-1. I mean, they're literally going into the stands on the home side and saying, "Aren't you upset about this game that we're winning by 100 points?" I mean, it's just incredible the delusions that you have to go through to say that this is an actual good strategy for them.
Well, and what's so odd is that when the president would not act, they said that he backed down, when in fact he was trying to give peace a chance. Then when he did act, they said he was a warmonger. So which is it? I mean, the Democrats have no strategy other than their rabid opposition to the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln. And I must tell you, he was in really fine form today. When I came in, he was going over the designs for the D.C. waterfront, which he's going to completely transform into a showcase for America. And it was kind of Trump the developer. He said, I want stadium lights here. I want a tree line here. I want infinity stairs here. No, move the restaurant over here. Move the amphitheater over here. It really is Trump doing what he does best. And he said to me, he looked up and he said, you can never go wrong investing in waterfront property.
You know, I think it's great that you mentioned Lincoln and then you mentioned the other context, because few people understand, and I know you know this as a historian as well as I am, Abraham Lincoln, first of all, through most of the Civil War, he was doing all the strategy. I mean, it wasn't until he got Grant on board finally someone to execute his strategy. But he was doing a lot of other stuff during that war, too, not the least of which being basically getting the whole transcontinental railroad going. I mean, I know we didn't finish that project until 4 years after the war, but Lincoln was really, we haven't had a man this busy in the Oval Office, at least, since Lincoln. And yet at the same time, talk about delusions, I'm seeing commercials out of the corner of my eye for that idiot George Conway talking about how the president is mentally unstable. I mean, the guy, you had to have clarity of mind to be as busy as this man, Roger.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about Conway. He's, of course, seeking the seat currently held by Congressman Gerald Nadler, probably one of the most liberal districts in the country. The Republican nominee, Lucian Wintrich, is an eccentric and very colorful figure. He's going to make this a race before it's over. The Democrats have to go through a primary. I believe he's got a Kennedy relative running there, a John Kennedy relative. I'm watching that race very, very closely. Conway is essentially a clown who used to call himself a conservative, was in the Federalist Society, but again, driven solely by his hatred for Donald Trump. And what they particularly hate is Trump's success. You would think that they would put the partisanship aside because they love the country, but they're so driven by hatred, it's not good for our country. And it is a huge concern.
Roger, I always say the one thing an arrogant man hates the most is another arrogant man. And, you know, look, to run for president, you need to have a certain level of cockiness and arrogance. I don't see how that is really such a bad thing. But if you can't put aside your personal sensitivities and self-importance, I mean, I know I'm asking a lot of politicians because that's really, and bureaucrats and things like that. But if you can't put it aside that for these incredibly tangible results, I'm sorry. I mean, we have a stronger nation by so many different measures. And I can understand if the Democrats are going to be deranged about this. But for fellow Republicans who are just so arrogant to not be able to get on board with it, I mean, just take a moment here and join a team. It's frightening. You can only imagine what else is bothering these guys.
Yeah, you know, I think I posted this earlier in the week on my social media. Our problem is not smart people who know they're smart. Our problem are not dumb people who know they're dumb. Our problem are dumb people who think they're smart. And also, one of my other famous maxims is the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about. And the fact that I was in the Oval for 2 hours today, I was upset. A lot of New York rhinos who were upset about the president's epic and historic endorsement of fellow businessman and entrepreneur Anthony Constantino. This is historic, as the president said to Constantino on the phone. Well, now you're going to be a congressman.
Well, that's amazing. You know, is this the answer, though, Roger, that we need to basically re-recruit this whole team? It's kind of like almost like a sports team metaphor. We need to get rid of the entire roster. And if there are some people on the roster currently who predate President Trump's presidency, the first one, I mean, obviously they can sort of, quote, reapply. I mean, I understand. This is what Chuck Noll did with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He told the whole team in 1969, you're all basically fired, and I'll reconsider some of you to come back. I mean, is this really kind of what we needed to do in the Republican Party?
I think this is a new Republican Party. The Republican Party used to be the party of the wealthy, the elite, the country clubs, Wall Street. That is just no longer true. We are the party of working-class Americans. We're the party of the hard-pressed American taxpayer. And I think the Democrats are now the party of the wealthy elite. So I think you have a complete juxtaposition here. You have a realignment in which sane Democrats like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, who, by the way, had an incredible week. This week, she declassified all the documents that proved that the two impeachments of Donald Trump were a hoax. The entire thing was contrived. And the real question I think many Republicans are asking is whether it's Russian collusion, which has now been completely exposed by Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, or whether it is the two fake impeachments. Is anybody going to be held accountable? Were the people who tried to destroy Donald Trump and his family, tried to destroy me, tried to destroy my good friend Mike Flynn, tried to destroy Rudy Giuliani, will these people be held accountable? Do we have a two-tier justice system in which there are one set of rules for leftist Democrats and a different set of rules for supporters of the president? That, I think, and the issue of election integrity, people want to know about the 2020 election. I'm sorry, but the idea that Joe Biden, who is a virtual vegetable in diapers, who's heavily sedated through much of his presidency, won 81 million votes and got on average 20% more in the African-American precincts across urban America is just not credible. People want to know about these paper ballots that dropped in the middle of the night. People want to know about whether these electronic voting machines are secure or whether they can be hacked and manipulated. The president has put Tulsi Gabbard on that mission, and we shall learn the truth very soon.
Roger, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I have some bad news to pass along, though, at least according to the AP. The AP is now calling this referendum vote in favor of the yes votes by a very small. Only 81% of the votes have been counted, but they're calling it now. Now that the yes votes have taken a 14,000 vote lead, it just flipped. It was 14,000 for the no's, and it flipped over. Again, this is going to be challenged in the courts, though, right, Roger? I mean, this isn't a done deal.
Yeah, I think the manner in which they put it on the ballot is probably illegal and unconstitutional, so I think it will be challenged. But look, the Democrats will cheat any place they can. The truth is they're already gerrymandering, California, Illinois, a number of states. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in Florida this week. Florida is ready for a congressional redistricting. You could get up to 5 new Republican-leaning seats in the Sunshine State if the Republicans will stick to their agenda and have the courage to do it. Democrats have no problem with grabbing these congressional districts. I think Florida, which used to be a purple state, you now have a 1.3 million Republican registration advantage in Florida. And, of course, many New Yorkers are fleeing the policies of Zohran Mamdani and Kathy Hochul because you have a high-tax, high-crime state in New York. People are moving to the Sunshine State.
Before I let you go, what's going to happen in the governor's race there? Does Byron Donalds have this thing wrapped up or no?
I think that he's got $60 million in the bank, which is extraordinary. He has the strong endorsement of Donald Trump. He will not be defeated in the Republican primary. The lieutenant governor, who's not a bad guy, is running at about 3%. Donalds is in the high 50s. So I think he easily rolls to the nomination. And the problem here with the Democrats is they have no candidates. So the party of Ruben Askew, the party of moderate Democrats, can no longer produce a moderate. They have a former Republican congressman who's now a lobbyist seeking the Democratic nomination. They have a corrupt former mayor of Orange County, that's Orlando. These are really weak nominees. So I think Byron Donalds rolls to this nomination, and then Donald Trump helps put him over the top in the fall.
Roger Stone, thank you so much for calling, and thank you for lending me the mic this evening. We'll hear from you soon, and thanks for all your insider information. What was going on in the you were more than a fly on the wall. You were an active participant in the Oval Office today. So thank you so much for that.
Well, it's delightful to be on the most powerful radio station in America and the best radio show in the country, the Stone Zone.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a break, and I will give you again a little bit more of those disheartening results, in my opinion, from Virginia. We'll be right back.
This is the Stone Zone with Roger Stone.
He likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone. Where's Roger?